before gaslighting was even a word, one friend group in 1409 Florence sat down and basically invented it. And then, because apparently that wasn't enough for them, they recruited an entire city to help pull it off. This is the story of the single biggest gaslight in recorded history, and the guy who never saw it coming, because how could he? Nobody had ever done this before. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how one missed dinner turned into a fake arrest, a judge who was in on it, and a man who left the country because his own city convinced him he wasn't real. So, let's go to Florence. It's 1409. Filippo Brunelleschi is not yet the guy who's gonna build one of the most famous domes on Earth. Right now, he's just a guy with a friend group. And like every friend group in history, this one has group chat energy, even though the group chat itself won't exist for another 600 years. They do dinners, they do hangouts, it's a whole vibe, and everyone's got a role in it. One of the guys in the crew is Manetto Amanatini, a woodworker so beloved by everyone that they just call him Il Grasso, the fat one. Which, fine, it's the 1400s, nicknames hit different. He's not some outsider either, he's genuinely part of the group. He shows up, he's got jokes, people like having him around, which honestly makes what's about to happen to him even worse. So Brunelleschi throws a dinner another day. Nothing crazy, just the crew getting together like they always do. And Manetto doesn't show up. That's it. That's the entire crime. The guy just skips one dinner. Now normally, someone skips dinner, you shrug, you eat their portion, life goes on. But this is Brunelleschi's dinner. And when someone at the table goes, "Hey, where's Manetto?" something shifts in Brunelleschi's face, because apparently, in his mind, skipping his dinner invitation wasn't a scheduling conflict, it was a disrespect. So instead of texting, "Bro, where were you?" which again doesn't exist yet, Brunelleschi looks around the table at his friends and says something closer to, "We are going to make him regret this." Not with a prank, with a full identity heist. And he doesn't cool off overnight either. This isn't a heat-of-the-moment thing he forgets about by morning. Brunelleschi actually sits with it, thinks it through. Because apparently, if you're the kind of mind that's going to figure out how to build a dome nobody else on Earth knows how to build, a missed dinner isn't just annoyance, it's a design problem. And design problems, to a guy like this, exist to be solved. This is the exact moment it turns into the single most elaborate act of psychological warfare in Renaissance Italy. And the wildest part, he's not doing it alone. A plan this big needs headcount. Brunelleschi doesn't just loop in his two closest friends, he goes wider. Other artisans, neighbors, random Florentines who barely even know Manetto but are absolutely delighted to be handed a role in whatever this is. Everyone gets briefed, everyone gets a part to play. This isn't two guys pranking a third guy, it's basically a production with a full cast, and apparently nobody in Florence had anything better to do that week. The plan itself is simple to describe and completely unhinged to actually pull off. When Manetto comes home, everyone in his life is going to insist he isn't Manetto. He's actually a man named Matteo. Neighbors will say it, strangers will say it, and if things go well, the state itself is going to say it too. Think about how many people you'd need on board to gaslight one guy out of his own name. Now imagine getting that many 15th century Italians to agree on a bit and actually stick to the script. No group chat, no shared doc, no quick "hey, everyone's still on for tonight" text to keep people aligned, just word of mouth, favor by favor, person by person, an entire coordinated operation held together by nothing but people genuinely wanting to see it through. Say what you want about 1409 Florence, but the commitment was real. The plan kicks off the next evening when Manetto is heading home from a normal day of woodworking, completely unaware his life is about to fall apart. Except he can't get in. The door's locked. Fine, maybe he's got the wrong key, maybe he's just tired. He knocks, and from inside his own house, a voice answers. A voice that sounds exactly like his own voice. Tells him, "Who's out there messing with my door?" Manetto freezes, because that's not just someone imitating him for a laugh. That's Brunelleschi, who apparently added flawless vocal impressions to his resume right under revolutionary architecture, doing a full performance as Manetto from inside Manetto's own home. Manetto tries to explain that he lives there, thanks, and could you please open the door? The voice calls him a liar, tells him he is Manetto, and orders this stranger to get lost immediately. Let that land for a second. A man got told to leave his own house by himself. At this point, most people would just assume they were losing their minds slightly, shrug it off, and go get a drink. Manetto, reasonably rattled, does something like that. He heads toward the town square to find someone, anyone, who can confirm that yes, he is in fact who he thinks he is. Unfortunately for him, that's exactly where things get so much worse. Here's the moment this stops being a prank between friends and becomes one of the most impressively coordinated group efforts in recorded history. Manetto starts running into people, friends, acquaintances, random guys on the street, and every single one of them looks him dead in the eye and calls him Matteo. Not Manetto, Matteo, a completely different guy. At first, he probably thinks it's a mix-up. Then it happens again and again. Every person he trusts to say, "Oh, hey Matteo, how's it going?" So naturally, panicking, he heads to the town square, hoping to find literally one person on his side. Instead, two debt collectors grab him, because apparently the real Matteo owes money, and now everyone in this conspiracy has decided Manetto is the guy who owes it. He gets hauled off and thrown in jail for someone else's debt, while insisting, presumably at increasing volume, that he is not that person. And you'd think jail would be the one place where the bit finally stops, right? Nope. The warden calls him Matteo, the other prisoners call him Matteo, then a judge shows up, looks at the paperwork, looks at Manetto, and also calls him Matteo. Let's just count the cast of this production so far. Brunelleschi, random friends on the street, two debt collectors, a jail warden, fellow prisoners, and an actual judge of the city. All committed, nobody breaking the character. By this point, Manetto isn't confused about a joke anymore. He is, as far as he can tell, the only person in the entire city of Florence who doesn't know which reality is the real one. Eventually, someone claiming to be Matteo's brother shows up to bail him out. Exhausted, confused, and honestly probably relieved someone's finally on his side, Manetto lets this stranger walk him home. He's so wrecked from the entire ordeal that he passes out almost instantly. And this is where the conspirators pull off the single most deranged detail in the entire operation. While he's asleep, they move him, physically relocate his unconscious body back to his actual house. Which, sure, sounds like a nice gesture, finally taking him home, except nobody tells him that's what happened. He wakes up the next morning in his own bed, in his own house, with zero memory of how he got there, after 2 days of the entire city insisting he was a stranger to himself. And then, just to really seal the deal, he overhears a conversation in town, the real Matteo casually telling someone about this strange dream he had. In the dream, Matteo describes waking up as a woodworker. Think about what that means from Manetto's side. He's just spent a full day being told by his entire city that he's someone else, and now he's standing there listening to that actual someone else describe living inside Manetto's life like it was just a dream he had one night. At that point, whose life is whose anymore? The loop is fully closed. Manetto isn't the butt of a joke, he's a man who briefly lost the plot on his own existence, orchestrated entirely by people who used to just be his friends. The record doesn't really give us the mic drop moment where he figures it all out and yells, "Brunelleschi!" because that's not really the point of the story. The point is that a man walked away from this genuinely uncertain whether reality itself had glitched on him over a missed dinner. Shortly after all this, Manetto leaves Florence. He heads off to Hungary and builds a life there for years before eventually coming back. Historians can't tell you with total certainty it was because of the prank, but the timing is, let's say, extremely suspicious. A man gets convinced by his entire city that he's not himself, and shortly after, he leaves the country. Make of that what you will. And here's the detail that really seals it. He doesn't come back for years. Not months, years. Whatever happened to him in those 2 days in Florence, it wasn't the kind of thing you just laugh off with the guys the following weekend. Want to hear the wildest part? Brunelleschi never really got in trouble for this. No lawsuit, no lasting beef, no reputation hit. He went on to become one of the most celebrated architects who ever lived. Meanwhile, the guy who just wanted to have dinner with his friends spent years in another country recovering from it. History's rough sometimes with who it lets off the hook. Now look, before you go trying to reenact this on a friend who canceled brunch on you, a quick word on how true this actually is. This story comes from a text written decades after it supposedly happened, by a guy who wasn't even at the dinner. Historians have gone back and forth for literally centuries on how much of this got exaggerated in the retelling, which, honestly, kinda perfect, because it means 600 years later, we're all still sitting here questioning whether this actually went down exactly as described, unsure what's real and what got added for effect, which means the last people Brunelleschi's crew ever managed to fool might be everyone watching this video right now. If you had fun with this one, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next unhinged true story, and click the video on your screen right now. Trust me, it's just as ridiculous as this one. See you there.